Hello everyone, welcome to the video course English File Pre-Intermediate 4th edition, episode number 16, Unit 5, Part B. It's called 12 Lost Wallets. Here you work, I just say what to do. There are 5 parts in today's lesson. First, you get some new vocabulary. It's all about how to describe a town or city. Where is it? How big is it? What's it like? What is there to see? And so on. So, what your town or city has in it. The second part is a grammar part. It's about 2 things. Superlatives, like the most boring, the best, the biggest, you know it, yeah? And about the present perfect tense, of course. And it's all connected. Like, what's the best city have you ever been to? Or, what's the best video game have you ever played? We use both pieces to talk about our life experiences. Then, a listening part follows. It's about an experiment. 12 lost wallets, yeah? The name of the Unit 5B, it will make sense for you later after you listen to the audio. Then we have a speaking part, couple of questions to answer, and finally there is a writing part, how to describe where you live. You see, there are a lot of things to do today. But before we start, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who is supporting my channel, and remember, these lessons are available only because of you. So if you want to see more episodes, please join my Boosty or use donation alerts. You can find all the links in the description. It's very important. Oh, let's start our lesson. Part number 1. Vocabulary describing a town or city. Part A. Think about how to answer these questions about where you live. Compare your answers with a partner. Do you live in a village, a town, or a city? Where's it? How big is it? What's the population? What's it like? Look, speaking of me, I can say that I live in a town. It's not big. You can walk around the town and it takes 1 hour or so, maybe less. The population is about, I think, 70,000 people. What's it like? I hope you remember this type of questions. It means, can you describe your town? So, what is my town like? It's quiet, green, and empty, I think. You can't meet a lot of people in streets because there are only 2 or 3 places that are somewhat crowded, but mostly it's empty. Now, answer these questions yourself. Keep it in mind that it is only a warm-up exercise. You just should say a couple of words or couple of things, not more. Now, do it. So, vocabulary. Part 1. Where is it? How big is it? Part A. Look at the map. You see it? Then read the description of York and circle the correct words or phrases. You see, York is a city in the south or north of England, but as you can see, it's in the north of England, so north is circled here. So look at the map and then circle the correct words or phrases. Then listen and check.
(5.9) Describing a town or city. 1. Where is it? How big is it?
York is a city in the north of England on the River Ouse. It's about 25 miles east of Leeds. It's a medium-sized city and it has a population of about 200,000. It's famous for its cathedral, York Minster, and its historic city centre.
Number 2. What's it like? Part A. Match adjectives to sentences 1 to 6. We have here boring, crowded, dangerous, modern, noisy, polluted. And number 1. There are a lot of bars and clubs with loud music. Number 2. The air is very dirty. Number 3. There are too many people. Number 4. The buildings were all built quite recently. Number 5. There is nothing to do. You see, it's boring. And number 6. You have to be careful, especially at night. So now match the adjectives to sentences. Now part B. Match these adjectives to their opposites in A. Clean, empty, exciting, historic, interesting, quiet, and safe. Now do this part, then check yourself.
Five 5.10. 2. What's it like? 5.
Boring.
Exciting. Interesting.
3.
Crowded.
Empty.
6.
Dangerous.
Safe.
4.
Modern.
Historic.
1.
Noisy.
Quiet.
2.
Polluted.
Clean.
Part D. Cover the words and look at the sentences. Remember the adjectives and their opposites. Try to check your memory. Number 3. What is there to see? A. Put the words in the correct column. Here we have 4 categories. Religious buildings, you see it's cathedral here. Places where you can buy things, like shops and stores. Historic buildings and monuments, like castle, for example, and just others, like bridge. Now try to put the words in the correct column, then check yourself.
Five 5.11. 3. What is there to see? Religious buildings.
Cathedral. Church. Mosque. Synagogue. Temple.
Places where you can buy things.
Department store. Market. Shopping centre.
Historic buildings and monuments.
Castle. City walls. Museum. Palace. Ruins. Statue. Town hall.
Others.
Bridge, canal, harbour, hill, lake.
Let's move on to grammar part. Superlatives plus ever plus present perfect. Part A. Look at the photos. Which countries are the cities in? What do you know about them? Have you been to any of them? Guys, I'm really sorry, I have nothing to say about these cities. Maybe New York? It is a city I know a little bit about. There are a lot of skyscrapers, big buildings, and there is one famous statue, Statue of Liberty. Nothing else. Of course, I can name countries. For example, Tokyo is the capital of Japan. I know these things, but it will be a spoiler for you. So what I suggest, try to say a couple of things following this example. Let's take Budapest. It is the capital of Hungary, and there is a lot of delicious food there. That's the only thing I know. So you say the name, the country, and one fact if you can, of course. If you have no idea about this or that particular city, it's okay. I just recommend you do research. So search for some information on the internet. Now work with these cities. Good luck. Part B. The 7 cities in A all did very well in a recent survey. With a partner, try to guess which cities were the winners in the different categories. Use the photos to help you. It's a guessing task. You have to guess here. Okay, let's read it. TripAdvisor World City Survey is based on responses from over 54,000 travelers' reviews for cities around the world. The survey looked at different categories, from how clean the cities were to how friendly the taxi drivers were. Overall winner, it came first in 5 of the categories, with the cleanest streets and the best public transport. Other category winners: the easiest to get around, like to travel around the city, the best value for money, the friendliest taxi drivers, the most exciting nightlife, the most family friendly, the best attractions. It's a guessing task. You have to guess here which city to put in number 1, 2, 3, and so on. After that, I'll read the answer keys out loud. Overall winner is Tokyo. The easiest to get around is Vienna. The best value for money, it's Budapest. The friendliest taxi drivers, it's Dubrovnik. The most exciting nightlife, it's New York City, of course. The most family friendly, it's Stockholm. And the best attractions, it's Rome, of course. Now let's move on to part C. Look at the categories in the survey. Think about your city or town. Would it do well in any of them? Speaking of my town, it definitely wouldn't do well in these categories. The transport is okay, but expensive. Everything is a bit overpriced, so it's not the best value for money. Taxi drivers, I think they are friendly, but sometimes, they aren't. Nightlife doesn't exist at all. Family friendly, I don't think so. The best attractions? Oh no, there are a couple of museums, and even local people don't know that they exist. Anyway, my town is quite green. There are a lot of trees and parks. That's why I like it. But there isn't a category for that in the survey. Now, speak about your town or city. Good luck. Since it was a warm-up exercise for this grammar part, just listen to some more examples first.
5.12. 1.
Tokyo is the cleanest capital city in the world.
Spain is one of the most popular holiday destinations.
Camping is the least expensive way to go on holiday.
2.
It's the most beautiful city I've ever been to.
It's the best film I've seen this year.
So, superlatives. Number 1. We use the plus superlative adjectives to say which is the biggest, etc. in a group. After superlatives, we use in plus names of places or singular words for groups of people. For example, it's the noisiest city in the world and the oldest in the class. We can also use the least plus adjective. For example, the least expensive or the cheapest. They mean the same. And number 2, we often use the plus superlative with the present perfect plus ever. It's something. It's the most beautiful city I've ever been to. It's the best film I've seen this year, and something like that, yeah? And we have 3 forms, yeah? Adjective, just usual form, comparative, and superlative. Let me just read them. Cold, colder, the coldest. Thin, thinner, the thinnest. Healthy, healthier, the healthiest. Beautiful, more beautiful, the most beautiful. Good, better, the best. Bad, worse, the worst. Far, further, the furthest. Or it's better to say far, farther, the farthest. It's just a more common word to use. Now, let's do a couple of practical exercises. Exercise A. Complete the sentences with a superlative. I think it will be easy. I hope so. Is Shanghai, the biggest city in the world? The Polish are generous, yeah? The most generous people I've ever met. So you continue this list. And B. Write sentences with the superlative plus ever plus the present perfect. It's like, it's the best film I've ever seen. It is the windiest place I have ever been to. She's the unfriendliest person? You will continue that. Now try to do it yourself, then check it. Okay, now let's do these exercises together. Complete the sentences with a superlative. Is Shanghai the biggest city in the world? You see big, so the biggest. It's a superlative here. The Polish are, I think, the most generous people I've ever met. Here comes like this. Yesterday was the hottest day of the year. You see, this word is short, so we can put est ending here. Number 3. Early morning is bad is irregular, so we need this form. Is the worst time to drive in the city center. You remember, bad, worse, the worst. Next is number 4. Actually, here you can use like most friendly or friendliest, but I heard friendliest a lot, so let's choose this option. She's the friendliest girl at school. But if you used the most friendly, it's also okay. It's optional. Number 5. This is the most important part of the exam. Something like this. Number 6. Good. It's a regular. Remember, good, better, the best. So, the best time to visit New England is autumn. Next is number 7. We have an ending ed, so we must use the most here. And India is one of the most polluted cities in the world. I'm sorry for this, but there is no other way. Number 8. Far. Far, it's also regular. You can use both, like the farthest. I think it's more common option here. And you also can use the furthest. But it's better to use the first one, because it was about a distance here. So, okay, let's move on. It was funny, yeah? It was the funniest film I've ever seen. It's okay. Number 10. Rob's daughters are... Number 10. Rob's daughters are all pretty, but I think Emily is the prettiest. So it's something like that here. Prettiest. Okay, you see the answers. Let me just read it one more time. The Polish are the most generous people I've ever met. Yesterday was the hottest day of the year. Early morning is the worst time to drive in the city center. She's the friendliest girl at school. This is the most important part of the exam. The best time to visit New England is autumn. I'm sorry I can't pronounce it, so in India is one of the most polluted cities in the world. The farthest or the furthest I've ever flown is to Bali. It was the funniest film I've ever seen. Rob's daughters are all pretty, but I think Emily is prettiest. Okay, let's do part B now. We need some surface to write on, so I will use this program. It's primitive, but it still works. Okay, it's the best film I've ever seen. It's the windiest place I've ever been to. Number 2. Here we have 2 options. So you can write, she is the most unfriendly person I've ever met. Or you can use, she's the unfriendliest person I've ever met. But look, here we have 3 syllables, like unfriendly in this case, so it's better to use the first option, but you can say the unfriendliest as well. Number 3. It's the easiest exam we've ever done. Number 4. They're the most expensive trousers I've ever bought. Number 5. This is the longest book I've ever read. Number 6. He's the most attractive man I've ever seen. Number 7. It's the worst meal I've ever eaten. Number 8. He's the most interesting teacher we've ever had. And number 9. It's the most exciting job I've ever done. Okay, let me read it again. It's the windiest place I've ever been to. She's the most unfriendly person I've ever met. Or she's the unfriendliest person I've ever met. Number 3. It's the easiest exam we ever done. They're the most expensive trousers I ever bought. This is the longest book I've ever read. He's the most attractive man I ever seen. It's the worst meal I've ever eaten. He's the most interesting teacher we ever had. It's the most exciting job I have ever done. You know, it's a kind of difficult, but it's okay. I hope you get some ideas. Now let's move on. Part 3. Listening. Part A. Read about a recent experiment. Then cover the text and, in your own words, explain how the experiment worked. What are the most and least honest cities in the world? Reader's Digest organized an experiment to try to find out. Their reporters lost 12 wallets in 16 cities around the world. They left the wallets in different areas of each of the chosen cities, places like shopping malls, or in parks, or on the pavement. In each wallet, there was the equivalent of $50 in local currency, a family photo, and a couple of business cards with a name and phone number. A reporter waited somewhere near each wallet to see what happened. Another reporter answered the phone when people called to report the lost wallet, and then met the people and asked them why they returned the wallet. Now try to explain in your own words how the experiment worked. Try to use the past simple. Try to express the main idea of the experiment, but in your own words. Possible answer. There were 16 cities in the experiment. People or reporters left 12 wallets with money, photos, I don't remember, and things with phone numbers, in them, in the wallets, in each city, in different places and areas. Then they waited till someone picked up the wallet and called. Then the reporter answered the phone and asked why they returned the wallet. It's a strange experiment, but it was. Let's read this thing. ranking things in order, like 1, 2, 3, ranking. It's better, it's worse, it's the best, it's the worst, and so on. Things are normally ranked from first to last. If two things have the same ranking, for example, if they are both second, they are called joint second, etc., or joint third, joint fourth. For example, USA won the most Olympic medals. China and Germany were joint second. They won the same numbers of medals. Read this information again and try to digest it, try to understand it. Now part C. Listen to a reporter talking about the results of the experiment. Rank the 9 cities he mentions in the correct order in B. So, what is the first place, second, third, fourth? And just keep it in mind that 2 cities can be in one place. For example, joint second, this city in this city. Joint fifth, this city in that city. So it's possible. Now listen to a reporter talking about the results of the experiment and rank the 9 cities he mentions in the correct order.
5.13.
Today we're talking about a very interesting experiment to find the most and least honest cities in the world. It involved journalists travelling to 16 cities and losing 12 wallets in each city, then waiting to see how many people returned them in each place. Our presenter, Oliver, has got the results. So, Oliver, which was the most honest city?
Well, in first place was Helsinki in Finland.
Oh.
People returned 11 of the 12 wallets. A businessman who found the wallet in the city centre said that Finnish people were naturally honest. He said there was very little corruption in Finland and that people didn't even drive through red traffic lights.
Really? And the least honest?
Well, I was quite surprised by this, but the least honest city in 16th place was Lisbon in Portugal.
Oh.
Only one person phoned to say they'd found the wallet. And he wasn't Portuguese. He was a 60-year-old tourist from Holland.
Interesting. What other results surprised you?
Well, I expected richer cities, cities with a higher standard of living, to be more honest than poorer ones, but this wasn't necessarily true. The city that came second in the experiment was Mumbai in India. People returned 9 out of the 12 wallets. One of them was a young mother. She took it to a post office and she said, "I teach my children to be honest, just like my parents taught me."
Oh, and which city came next?
In joint third place were New York and Budapest. People gave back 8 wallets in both places.
And then?
Moscow and Amsterdam came joint 5th. In both places, 7 out of 12 wallets were returned. And people gave lovely reasons for returning them. In Moscow, a woman said, "I think that people need to help each other. And if I can make someone a little happier, I want to do it." And in Amsterdam, a man said, "My wife once lost her wallet. It was found and returned, so I wanted to do the same."
I notice my home city, London, is on the list. How did it do?
London was somewhere in the middle, joint 9th with Warsaw. Just 5 of the wallets were returned in each place. Interestingly, one of the people who returned a wallet in London was a Polish woman. When she found the wallet, she gave it to her boss. Her boss, said to her, "If you find money, you can't be sure it belongs to a rich man. It might be the last bit of money a mother has to feed her family."
Oh, I think that's fantastic advice. So, were there any general conclusions? What did the experiment prove?
47% of the wallets were returned, so that's nearly half. And when we looked through the results, we found that you couldn't predict who was going to be honest or dishonest. There was no common factor. Young people and old people both kept or returned wallets. Men and women both kept or returned wallets. And as I said before, it didn't make any difference whether a city was rich or poor. So our conclusion was that there are honest and dishonest people everywhere.
Part D. Listen again for more details. Answer the questions. In which city did someone say his wife once lost her wallet? B. People in his country were very honest. C. People need to help each other. D. She teaches her children to be honest. And E. You can never know if the wallet belongs to a poor person. So in which city did someone say these things? And number 2. What percentage of the wallets were returned? Did the people who gave them back have anything in common? I hope you remember what have in common means. It's a very good phrase. And I hope you're ready to do this task. Listen again and answer these questions.
5.13.
Today, we're talking about a very interesting experiment to find the most and least honest cities in the world. It involved journalists travelling to 16 cities and losing 12 wallets in each city, then waiting to see how many people returned them in each place. Our presenter, Oliver, has got the results. So, Oliver, which was the most honest city?
Well, in first place was Helsinki in Finland.
Oh.
People returned 11 of the 12 wallets. A businessman who found the wallet in the city centre said that Finnish people were naturally honest. He said there was very little corruption in Finland and that people didn't even drive through red traffic lights.
Really? And the least honest?
Well, I was quite surprised by this, but the least honest city in 16th place was Lisbon in Portugal.
Oh.
Only one person phoned to say they'd found the wallet. And he wasn't Portuguese. He was a 60-year-old tourist from Holland.
Interesting. What other results surprised you?
Well, I expected richer cities with a higher standard of living, to be more honest than poorer ones, but this wasn't necessarily true. The city that came second in the experiment was Mumbai in India. People returned 9 out of the 12 wallets. One of them was a young mother. She took it to a post office and she said, "I teach my children to be honest, just like my parents taught me."
Oh. And which city came next?
In joint third place were New York and Budapest. People gave back 8 wallets in both places.
And then?
Moscow and Amsterdam came joint 5th. In both places, 7 out of 12 wallets were returned. And people gave lovely reasons for returning them. In Moscow, a woman said, "I think that people need to help each other. And if I can make someone a little happier, I want to do it." And in Amsterdam, a man said, "My wife once lost her wallet. It was found and returned, so I wanted to do the same."
I notice my home city, London, is on the list. How did it do?
London was somewhere in the middle, joint 9th with Warsaw. Just 5 of the wallets were returned in each place. Interestingly, one of the people who returned a wallet in London was a Polish woman. When she found the wallet, she gave it to her boss. Her boss, said to her, "If you find money, you can't be sure it belongs to a rich man. It might be the last bit of money a mother has to feed her family."
Oh, I think that's fantastic advice. So, were there any general conclusions? What did the experiment prove?
47% of the wallets were returned, so that's nearly half. And when we looked through the results, we found that you couldn't predict who was going to be honest or dishonest. There was no common factor. Young people and old people both kept or returned wallets. Men and women both kept or returned wallets. And as I said before, it didn't make any difference whether a city was rich or poor. So our conclusion was that there are honest and dishonest people everywhere.
So let's see the answers. Number 1. In which city did someone say his wife once lost her wallet? It was in Amsterdam. In which city did someone say people in his country were very honest? It was in Helsinki. In which city did someone say people need to help each other? It was in Moscow. In which city did someone say she teaches her children to be honest? It was in Mumbai. And in which city did someone say you can never know if the wallet belongs to a poor person? It was in London. And number 2, what percentage of the wallets were returned? 47%. Did the people who gave them back have anything in common? No, there was no common factor. So the answer is no, they didn't. Ну, теперь давайте переведем эту аудиозапись, она у нас довольно большая. Сегодня мы говорим об одном очень интересном эксперименте, чтобы найти сам наиболее или наименее честные города во всем мире или в мире. Этот эксперимент включал в себя журналистов, которые путешествовали в 16 городов и якобы теряли 12 кошельков в каждом городе. Затем они ждали, чтобы посмотреть, как много людей возвратило бы их, то бишь кошельки, в каждом месте, но это имеется в виду в каждом городе. Наш ведущий Оливер имеет результаты. Итак, Оливер, какой был самый честный город? Ну, на первом месте был Хельсинки, Финляндия. Люди возвратили 11 из 12 кошельков. А бизнесмен, который нашел кошелек в центре города, сказал, что финны, финны, как бы тут перевести? Имеется в виду, они от природы честные. То есть were naturally honest. То есть от природы честные, были рождены такими. Он сказал, что в Финляндии очень маленькая, небольшая коррупция, она очень маленькая. И то, что люди даже не вводят или не ездят на красный свет. То есть didn't even drive through red traffic lights. На красный свет они даже не ездили. Так, правда. А какой самый нечестный? Наименее честный. Я был довольно удивлен этим, но наименее честный город на 16 месте это был Лиссабон в Португалии. Только один человек позвонил и сказал, что он нашел кошелек. И, то есть, получается, он не был португальцем, то есть не был родом оттуда. Это был, получается, 60-летний турист из Голландии. Интересно. Какие другие результаты удивили вас? Я ожидал, что в богатых городах, то есть более обеспеченных городах, то есть городах с высоким уровнем жизни, или стандартом жизни, можно и так сказать, что эти города, они будут более честные, чем бедные города. Но это не обязательно правда. То есть this wasn't necessarily true, то есть не обязательно это было так. Город, который на втором месте эксперимента, был Мумбаи в Индии. Люди возвратили 9 из 12 кошельков. Один из них, то есть одна из них, даже можно сказать, была молодая мама. Она взяла этот кошелек и отнесла, получается, to a post office, на почту, и она сказала: «Я учу своих детей быть честными, так как мои родители, учили меня». А какие следующие города по списку? Ну, третье место разделили, да, можно так сказать. То есть на третьем месте были города Нью-Йорк и Будапешт. Люди, получается, вернули 8 кошельков и там, in both places, и Нью-Йорке, и в Будапеште. А затем, кто следует? Москва и Амстердам, они, получается, came joint fifth, то есть эти два города на 5-м месте. И там 7 из 12 кошельков были возвращены. И люди люди говорили или давали вот так, давайте дословно, люди дали классные причины, почему они их вернули. В Москве женщина сказала: «Я думаю, что людям нужно помогать друг другу. И если я могу сделать кого-то чуть-чуть счастливее, я хочу это сделать». И в Амстердаме мужчина сказал: «Моя жена однажды потеряла ее кошелек, и этот кошелек был найден и возвращен, поэтому я хочу сделать то же самое». Так, и тут говорит человек: «Я заметил, что откуда я родом, Лондон, тоже в списке. А как там дела обстояли?» Лондон был где-то посередине. Joint ninth with Warsaw. Это имеется в виду, он разделил 9 место с Варшавой. Только 5 из 12, нет, просто 5 кошельков были возвращены в каждом месте. Интересно, один из людей, который вернул кошелек в Лондоне, была, получается, женщина родом из Польши, Polish woman. Когда она нашла кошелек, она отдала ее боссу. Ее босс, сказал ей: «Если ты нашла деньги, то есть ты не можешь быть уверена, что это принадлежит богатому человеку. Это может быть, получается, последние деньги какой-нибудь мамочки, которой нужно кормить свою семью». Я думаю, это просто замечательный совет. То есть, итак, а были ли там какие-то, как бы тут перевести, можно ли сделать какие-нибудь выводы? Conclusions — это выводы. Что эксперимент proof это доказал? Что доказал эксперимент? 47% кошельков были возвращены, что это около половины. И когда мы look through, это как бы взглянули внимательно на результаты, мы нашли или мы обнаружили, что нельзя предсказать, кто в тот момент был бы честным или нечестным. Нету никакого объединяющего фактора, то есть common factor, то есть какой-то фактор, который бы на это указал. Молодые люди и старые люди, и те опять получается, либо оставляли себя, либо возвращали кошельки. Мужчины и женщины тоже и те либо оставляли, либо возвращали кошельки. И как я сказал ранее, получается, не было никакой разницы, был ли город богатый или бедный. Итак, наш вывод, был из-за этого эксперимента, наш вывод такой, что есть честные и нечестные люди everywhere, везде. Вот такая вот была аудиозапись. Надеюсь, теперь она стала попонятней. Время идти дальше. Part E. Think about your city or the nearest big city to where you live. In this experiment, do you think it would come in the top 3, in the bottom 3, or somewhere in the middle? And why? I don't know. This task is there in the textbook, of course, but for me it doesn't make any sense to discuss because I'm quite sure that you have no interest in doing such a task, but okay. Let's say just at least a couple of words. And speaking of my nearest big city, I think it would come in the middle because there are a lot of honest people there and in my country, but somehow dishonest people are the luckiest ones. So I think they would find those wallets and they wouldn't return them. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. Actually, I have no idea, but I think it would be something in the middle. Now, if you have something to say, feel free to do it. But if you think this task is silly and it doesn't make any sense, feel free to skip it and just move on. Part 4. Pronunciation and Speaking. Sentence stress. Part A. Listen and complete the questions with a superlative adjective. So just listen and complete. Typical task. Do it.
5.14. 1,
What's the most beautiful city you've ever been to?
2,
What's the most relaxing holiday you've ever had?
3,
What's the most frightening film you've ever seen?
4,
What's the most exciting sporting event you've ever watched?
5,
What's the most expensive thing you've ever bought?
6,
Who's the most generous person you've ever met?
7,
What's the most dangerous sport you've ever done?
8,
What's the most difficult subject you've ever studied?
5.14. 1,
What's the most beautiful city you've ever been to?
2,
What's the most relaxing holiday you've ever had?
3,
What's the most frightening film you've ever seen?
4,
What's the most exciting sporting event you've ever watched?
5,
What's the most expensive thing you've ever bought?
6,
Who's the most generous person you've ever met?
7,
What's the most dangerous sport you've ever done?
8,
What's the most difficult subject you've ever studied?
Part C. Work with the partner. A. Answer question 1 with a sentence. B. Ask for more information, then vice versa. Look, let's do it this way. There aren't any partners. So it means I and you have to do it. We have to do it ourselves. Let's just answer these questions. And again, the main goal is to say as much as possible. I'll do it first, then it will be your turn. The first question, what's the most beautiful city you've ever been to? That's a sort of question you ask to a keen traveler, to a person who has been to a lot of countries and cities, and they can compare them. Since I haven't been to many cities, I can't answer this question. Sorry. Number 2. What's the most relaxing holiday you've ever had? I think I had a lot of relaxing holidays in the past when I was a school student. Parents didn't make me do anything. I just could chill, relax, play video games, and so on. But speaking of recent times, I can't relax because I'm getting older and I haven't done many things yet. I try to use my holidays not to relax, but to think. Think about everything I do and maybe come up with some new ideas, or I try to improve my things and so on. Number 3, what's the most frightening film you've ever seen? I forgot its name. I saw a scary one. It was about voices that people can have in their heads. And it can be just a horror story, but this thing is real. Some people have this problem, and I tried to imagine what a life could be with those voices in your head, and it made it be quite frightening. Move on. Number 4. What's the most exciting sporting event you've ever watched? I think it was a parkour competition. I couldn't believe that human beings are able of doing such tricks, flips, and amazing things. That was great to see, but it was a long time ago. I couldn't remember any more details. So I can't remember any more details. Number 5. What's the most expensive thing you've ever bought? I think it's my computer, definitely, and this baby. I can't say it cost me a lot, but anyway, I think it is the most expensive thing I currently have. Number 6. Who is the most generous person you've ever met? It's hard to say. I think it's my father. He likes giving things to other people and he tries to help everyone. It is him. Number 7. What's the most dangerous sport you've ever done? Parkour? I think I did a couple of dangerous things. I was crazy about it, and in my childhood and when I was a teenager and so on, I think it's parkour. And number 8. What's the most difficult subject you've ever studied? I think it's computer linguistics. You know, it's a mix of mathematics, programming, and linguistics, and altogether is very complicated to study. Even teachers weren't qualified enough to explain it clearly. That is why I find it very difficult to study. So, guys, now your turn to speak. Good luck with it. And remember, try to say as much as possible. Now we have a writing task. Number 4. Describing where you live. Part A. Read the description and complete it with the words from the list. Area, city, food, historic, modern, nature, population, rivers, weather. Now read the description and complete it with the words from this list. Part B. Match the questions to paragraphs 1 to 5. I hope that you know what a word paragraph means. Check it. So, what's it famous for? What's the weather like? What's the best thing about it? Do you like living there? What's your town like? What is there to see there? Where do you live? Where's it? How big is it? So match the question to paragraphs 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now plan a description of the place where you live. Think about your town or city and make notes to answer the questions in B. Write your description in 5 paragraphs, answer the questions in B in the correct order, and finally check your description for mistakes, grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Again, guys, I usually try to give you examples how to do things, but this thing, I think it's too personal. I don't want to reveal where I live. If it's important for you to learn to write, you should do this task anyway. But unfortunately, writing without any feedback could be a little bit inefficient. But you know this rule, it's better to try than not to try. You can write something about your town or city and share it with other people in the comment section. I think many would enjoy reading it. And there is one thing to add. It's not difficult to write because you have first an example, how to write, and just questions to answer. What's it famous for? What's the weather like? What's the best thing about it? So just answer these questions, but do it in a written form. So, good luck. And now let's look at your homework tasks.
Five point 3. 5B. Pronunciation. 1.
What's the most romantic city you've ever been to?
2.
What's the funniest film you've ever seen?
3.
What's the most famous building you've ever seen?
4.
What's the most interesting thing you've learnt this year?
5.
What's the best meal you've ever had?
Первая у нас работа с картой, описание города или города, да, маленького города, большого города. Можно вот так вот это определять. Так, заполните email словами из списка, используйте карту, чтобы вам она могла помочь. То есть это название, по ней ориентироваться. Давайте с вами посмотрим сначала на слова. Нам нужно ставить побережье, восточный, среднего размера, север или на севере. Так, ой, только не восточный, это просто восток, север, река, юг, запад. Ой, ну давайте переведем, посмотрим. Привет, Клэр. Извини, я собираюсь уехать, когда ты приедешь. Но я надеюсь, ты и твоя семья проведете замечательные выходные здесь, в Винчестере. Вот вам несколько идей и получается ссылка на карту. Так, Cathedral — это собор. То есть собор — это наша главная туристическая достопримечательность. Это на юге города. Где тут Cathedral? Вот он на юге у нас, собор этот. И он очень прикольный. Также есть хороший музей рядом с ним тоже. Также есть, получается, несколько тоже хороших мест, которых стоит посмотреть. Или хороших мест, чтобы посмотреть в какой-то части города. Like the Low Courts and the Great Hall. То есть, так, смотрим. Low Courts, Great Hall, вот они. И я так понимаю, они на западе. Угу. Ну, здесь я бы написал тогда West. То есть на западе города. А что это? Это, короче, суд и... Так, Great Hall, что это может быть, точно не помню. Ну ладно, это не столь важно. То есть просто здание достопримечательности. Так, вечером вы можете посмотреть что-нибудь в театре, в Королевском театре, который находится где у нас? Theater, на севере получается, in the north of the city. Рядом с Discovery Center, ну вот с этим местом. Ваш отель находится of the city. Отель получается у нас на востоке, in the east. рядом вот с этим дворцом. Это тихая местность, и отель имеет хороший вид. Это у нас River Itchen. Оно у нас тут с большой буквы пишется. Пишу сюда River Itchen. То есть на эту реку. It's about 50 rooms. Идет речь про размер. Medium-sized hotel. Давайте сюда это и напишем. Medium-sized. Отель среднего размера на 50 комнат. Так, я не знаю, если вы хотите сходить на пляж, это довольно очень легко сделать. То есть получается, побережье, the coast, 20 минут на поезде. Ну, не так уж это и близко, 20 минут на поезде до берега. Ну ладно, have a great time. Хорошо провести время, Сара. А вот у нас, кстати, упражнение прикольное, мне даже понравилось. Здесь все сделано. Дальше.